What if the United States has learned how to make UAPs appear, not by waiting for random sightings, but by deliberately creating the conditions that attract them? And what if the next step is even more extraordinary, to shoot them down? That is the allegation now emerging around White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. Investigative journalist Ross Coulthart says sources have described a covert U.S. effort to summon, detect, intercept, and potentially recover unidentified anomalous objects. But this story is not yet proven, and that distinction is critical. Because unlike many historical UFO stories, this claim concerns something that may be happening now, and if it is happening, it should leave evidence behind. The story begins with a private research organization called Skywatcher. Skywatcher claimed it was developing something very unusual, a method for deliberately attracting anomalous objects into an observation area. One technique was described as an electromechanical signal. Internally, it became known as the dog whistle. It was not literally a sound. Instead, Skywatcher described a technological process involving equipment, specific configurations, and signaling. The goal was simple: create the stimulus, wait for a response, and record whatever appeared. Skywatcher claimed the method showed preliminary repeatability, but the exact signal has never been publicly disclosed, and its publicly released imagery has not proven the existence of extraordinary craft. Then something interesting happened. James Fowler was one of the key technical figures behind Skywatcher's field operations. He had experience with sensors, electronic warfare, and aerial intelligence. In 2025, Fowler left active involvement with Skywatcher. At roughly the same time, Skywatcher announced that its initial field operations had ended, and Fowler moved into work connected with U.S. government contracting. That alone proves nothing. But then Congressman Eric Burlison described something remarkably similar. Burlison has received classified briefings concerning UAP. Earlier in 2026, he described an experiment in which government personnel deliberately recreated conditions associated with previous UAP activity. The purpose was to see whether the phenomenon would appear again. According to Burlison, the experiment was very successful, and on August 19th, he became even more specific. He said U.S. agencies studied earlier encounters, identified conditions that appeared to attract the phenomenon, then recreated those conditions at a location where previous activity had occurred. He said personnel from ODNI, the CIA, FBI, and military intelligence were involved. Then he summarized what happened in 3 words. Something showed up. That does not tell us what appeared. A drone, a balloon, a classified aircraft, a sensor anomaly, or something genuinely unexplained. We simply do not know. But Coulthart's reporting goes further. His sources claim the United States is using techniques related to those developed by Skywatcher around White Sands, and that attempts have been made to disable objects after they appear. One alleged method involves high-power microwave-directed energy. That part of the story is not science fiction. The United States has publicly tested high-power microwave systems capable of disrupting and disabling airborne electronic systems. What remains completely unproven is what the alleged targets actually were. Then there is the strange El Paso incident. On February 10th, 2026, the FAA abruptly closed airspace around El Paso, Texas. The original restriction was expected to last 10 days. Instead, it was lifted within hours. Coulthart has connected that event with the alleged UAP operation. But there is a major competing explanation. Mainstream reporting linked the closure to a military counter-drone directed energy system near Fort Bliss. Some reports suggested the target may simply have been a balloon, so El Paso is not proof of a UAP shootdown. But it does confirm something important. The technology required to disable objects in the sky already exists, and this is where the story becomes scientifically interesting. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb has responded to the White Sands claims with a simple argument. If something was actually shot down, show us the debris, because recovered material could be tested, its chemical composition, its internal structure, its isotopic ratios, its manufacturing characteristics, its exposure to heat, radiation, or electromagnetic energy. At that point, this stops being a debate about belief. It becomes laboratory science. And the investigation should start with the ordinary explanations: aircraft, drones, balloons, sensor artifacts, secret American technology, foreign technology, natural phenomena. Only if those explanations fail should something more exotic be considered. That is what makes this story different. If a current government operation really exists, there should be records, radar tracks, infrared recordings, electro-optical imagery, radio frequency measurements, operational logs, weapons system data, recovery documentation, and perhaps physical material. Release the sensor data, release the operational chronology, and if material was recovered, release a sample to independent laboratories. Because there is currently no public evidence proving that the United States has summoned and shot down non-human craft. But several pieces of this story are beginning to overlap. A private organization claimed it could deliberately attract anomalous objects. One of its key technical figures moved into government contracting. A member of Congress says intelligence agencies recreated conditions associated with UAP activity, and something appeared. Coulthart claims similar techniques are now being used around White Sands, and Avi Loeb is publicly asking for access to whatever may have been recovered. None of this proves extraterrestrial technology. But perhaps we are finally approaching a better question. Has the United States moved from simply observing UAP to deliberately provoking repeatable encounters with them? And if it has, what exactly is responding? Because if an unknown object can repeatedly be made to appear, measured by multiple sensors, physically disabled, and recovered for laboratory analysis, then the UAP mystery changes completely. It becomes an experiment, and repeatability is where mystery ends and science begins.